welcome back to Story TV. I'm Lorda Akpata, your usual host. So, as we continue with inspiring stories, inspiring journeys, today we have Tshepo Ntshole in studio. Tshepo Ntshole Hall, right?
Yeah, right.
In studio. So, we're going to be talking about her journey. You know, Tshepo is the Chief Executive Director of the whole group of companies, passionate storyteller, media, and broadcast professional with over 21 years in the industry, currently in the content creation and publishing sector. I mean, guys, you know Tshepo. I'm sure all of you are familiar with her. We need to know her story and just, dig into you today.
Right.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you
Yeah.
for coming, because Saturday, guys, we're shooting this on a Saturday, by
Yeah.
the way. It's a day where, it's your time for you and your kids. And
Well,
everybody,
it's more time for the kids and running around and doing the domestic stuff and anything that needs to be kind of a home stuff. So and yes, you give yourself a little bit of time. But if this kind of thing needs to happen, then it needs to happen.
Right?
Yeah.
No, Tshepo, normally we work together. We're always those girls that we have each other's back behind the scenes, and we always do. Yeah. But thank you so much for coming, Tshepo. So today I want us to touch on your journey. You know, your creative journey. You've been in this journey for a while now. We've been hearing you. Kind of when you're on air, it was during our time when we were listening to your FM and Gibbs FM. At the time, we were just like listening and we loved you so much. I remember.
Thank you.
I remember your voice. Everybody was really intrigued about your voice. I don't know if you remember. Yes, we were so intrigued about your voice and them Chana days. Chana days. But we're gonna get into that. But first, let's talk about Tshepo.
Right.
Who is Tshepo? Who is Tshepo?
This question always throws you off balance, right? Because every time you say who is Tshepo, you always want to kind of put in your achievements and everything that you've done in life as sort of the identifiers of who you are. But I've grown to learn that when somebody asks that question, it's really more about your essence and your being, really. I am a very, very introverted, extroverted individual. I love being out there, but also I love being alone. Okay. And I am spiritual, and I'm currently having yet another spiritual awakening. And I'm a very spiritual being, and I love life. I love people, but also there's one side of me that kind of doesn't,
I can relate to that.
Yeah, the yin and yang of it all. I love a good laugh. I love a good moment with the people that I really, really love, and I really enjoy that company. So that's who I am, the essence of who I am. I'm very, very focused in terms of getting the things that I want, but sometimes also I can be incredibly distracted, either because of fear or because of being unsure about certain things. But once I get over that, I become a very focused individual. I think that's who I am, a good lover of life. I enjoy a good laugh. And I'm just incredibly, incredibly spiritual, more so now in my 40s.
Yeah, we need to talk about that, actually, the incredible spiritual and what does that mean, but we'll get into it in a bit. Where's Tshepo from?
Tshepo is a Mokhatla girl, born by a Mokhatla woman and a Sotho man. So my biological father actually is Sotho, and then my stepfather, who is the person I bear his name, but I've always grown up as Ntshole. I've always embraced the Ntshole surname. In fact, when I started my media journey, I always said I want to make this Ntshole name become, because how many people knew Ntsholes before, you know what I mean? And I always knew that one day in one of those names. Well, that was always my dream, that it would be among the great names out there, So that's another reason why I'm struggling to let go of it even after my marriage. But that's another conversation.
I thought it's because of your brand now.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. That you work so hard to kind of put it out there, and then there's this individual who comes into your life who you really want to be a part of in everything, really. So it's a balance of the two.
It's so interesting because we had Mother K.
Yes.
The just the other day, and she said exactly the same thing. I know she didn't change her surname for a while.
Yeah.
And she was just like, what about me?
Yeah.
Me? You know, you kept saying, what about
you're
me?
walking into for me it's a brand thing, it's an association thing, because when you walk into an office Tshepo Ntshole, people know who that is. Right? But when I'm going to start walking into Tshepo Hall, right? It's going to be, who is that?
Yeah.
It's going to take a moment or two for them, and it's got nothing to do with my husband. It's really got to do with familiarity and quick service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you get quicker service?
Oh, yeah.
I
mean 7-8 years
you move
after
mountains.
the fact, my name really does move mountains. But sometimes it gets, there's the opposite where people are just like,
sometimes, but most of the time it opens the doors.
Yeah, it does.
Normally it will not easily be opened, but it opens.
So that's the transition I'm really kind of going through or getting into. So Ntshole Hall, you know what I mean? And I use Tshepo Ntshole really strictly when I'm working, when I'm on stage, in certain spaces where I still need to kind of bring that weight to the room. I use my brand name. But otherwise, Tshepo Ntshole Hall, and that's what I've changed my social media presence to be.
Have you? I actually didn't pay attention to Tshepo Ntshole Hall. I have. Oh, have you? Oh, okay. No, I think it's fine. I mean, we already know who Tshepo Ntshole is. Like you do. I was asking them during my team here, you guys know Tshepo Ntshole? Like, sounds familiar.
Really? The name would sound...
it sounds familiar.
So we kind of know who it is.
Yeah. Then you come in, they're like, oh.
Right,
Yeah, so do you, tell me about your kids. How many kids do you have?
I have 2 daughters and 1 stepdaughter that I don't really normally talk about because, what did Drake say? We're not hiding her from the world, we're hiding the world from her. Or something around that. So
not a Drake fan, so
we've got 3 kids and it's incredible, and this new part of parenting where we need to kind of look at the blended family conversation. I think last year I grew up a lot. I did very adult things, right? That pertained to that part of our journey as a family. And that conversation continues. These conversations still grow. So 2 of my own and 1 step, and my 2 girls. 1 is turning 10 this year, and the other one is turning 3 in April.
Tell me, now that you have baby girls, right? How has that shifted your world, parenting, health, everything perspective?
How has it shifted my world? I think you become more aware of almost everything around you. The dangers, and that doesn't necessarily just speak to the girl child. Just becoming a parent, you become very super aware, hyper aware is actually
of everything.
You become cognizant of certain conversations, either that you need to be having, or that or why should we be having these conversations? Sorry,
it's okay.
So as a parent, really, it just shifts. The shift is moves away from who you are, because I was very clear that I was not going to have kids in my 20s. That was something I was always clear of, or clear about, because I was young. I was always the youngest in any community.
Why?
I was young. I mean, I started working at 16 or 17. And then my first official job, I was 19 at Gabs FM. So I was always, in any given community, I was always the youngest. So, I mean, and in my family, I'm the last born. Right? So for me, it was just like, it's an age thing, but also I wanted to have fun. I was selfish.
Your 20s, I feel like those are your best years.
Exactly. So I was very,
I agree.
So I was very, very clear in that I was not going to have kids in my 20s. But then I always knew that I would probably have kids later on, but marriage was never something that I aspired for.
Is it? That's quite interesting.
I never because I was raised by a single mother. So I never knew what that looked like, you know, and there were a few divorces around me as I was growing up. So it's something that I never really aspired to do. And even when I met my then boyfriend, now husband, and the conversation of us getting serious is like, you know what, just give me a child. You can be on your way if you so wish.
Was that you?
Yeah. I was very clear about the fact that if it sounds and it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a long term, just give me a child. Or if you are not even sure, just give me a child, because we started dating when I was 30.
Yeah.
So just being a mom has just been incredible. I love it.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely
enjoying it. Yeah.
I genuinely love it, and because of the fact that I had children later, I get into it without looking over my shoulder.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You don't think you're missing out on anything.
I don't think I'm missing out on anything.
You have lived. What you're saying is I've exhausted that part of...
At 34, you understand what I mean? I've done my part of joy and enjoying. Of course, as a mom, I want to enjoy with my friends and I want to go out with my husband and
do what you want to do.
I immersed myself fully into being a mom the first 7 years of having that one child.
So what ended up convincing you to get married? What changed your mind? What changed you?
I felt deeply in love.
Oh.
Yeah, I felt genuinely in love, but mostly it was a practicality thing. I was practical about it. I said, we've been together for this long. We see ourselves still living together for that long.
Yeah.
Why not?
That's it. Why not?
I mean, I didn't ask him to marry me or anything, but I'm just like, we would have these kinds of conversations that, you know, I think it would be, we thought it would be better to kind of have conversations around moving forward as a unit and not as one day somebody might just wake up and decide that they don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what really cemented the whole thing. If he does ask me, I think I would. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, you know, I think with life and, you know, as you evolve, you know, into whoever that you are, and eventually, you know, it's a perspective that you might have in your 20s changes. Absolutely. You know, and it's okay. You know, it's okay to change. Like, actually, no. Yeah. I want to do this.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's going to change. And the one thing I'm learning in my 40s is going to change throughout your life.
Yeah.
What I believed in my 30s, my 20s is not what I believed in my 30s. And it's definitely changed in my 40s.
No, absolutely. Can we touch on your spiritual journey? You said now you are more spiritual than you've ever been, and you are in a spiritual journey. What does that mean?
It means I've had to meet God. I've had an encounter. I've had a God moment. I've had an encounter with God, and knowing and understanding that my God is not your God, is not her God, and how I speak to God is very different with how you would speak to your God. Yeah. And then what I have woken up to is that the spiritual journey is not a group. It's not a group. You know.
There's no need for any validation from anybody.
Not even that. It's not a group activity. God is a singular thing and a singular journey. And for me, that's what I've had to come to terms with. And over the last 3 years, that is exactly what I've always been spiritual. In fact, I have dabbled in Buddhism when I was 15. Yeah,
that's interesting.
And I consider myself still a practicing Buddhist, right? So that's why I would say I'm a spiritual Christian. Yeah. Or, you know, so because my cousin, aunt, whatever, she was very deep into Buddhism, and she came home one time, she lived abroad, and I was just very intrigued. And at the same time, my mother had this best friend, white lady, who was also kind of into these things. She would just leave, she would come visit, and I would ask her about it, and she would, you know, leave books, and I would read about it. I really got interested in the ethos of Buddhism, and that it's just your everyday existence, right? Yes. There's nothing that you need to get out there. It's all in here. And then, you know, I come back to Christianity at some point because that is what I know. Yes. That is what is ingrained. But then on the other side of these two experiences, it's one and the same thing, right? It's one and the same thing. It's just communicated very, very differently. So that's why I've decided not to be just a Christian or just spiritual, or I'm a spiritual Christian.
That's it.
And I love where I am so much.
How's that going? I want to know what you mean by that. As in you're discovering God more in your relationship with Him.
I'm discovering God. I've discovered God a lot more. He has shown up vividly. He has shown up where there hasn't been no question that this is
me. I'm here.
But mostly he didn't go. I then wake up to the fact that he didn't go anywhere.
No, I've been just
you are too busy.
Only busy when I
yes,
thing.
You are so hectic, girl. But you know what? You went out in search and you realized that you make a full circle. And I when you left, I was here. When you come back, I was here. And it feels so. And the reason why I keep saying that it feels so amazing is that saying unbothered feels a little bit, and not nice, right? When you say you're unbothered, but I'm not in a fearful place.
Yes. You have more faith than anything.
That's it. 100%. My faith is so much stronger than it was 4 years ago.
Are you reading the Bible and all that?
I'm reading, I'm reading the Bible. I'm reading passages. I'm also veering off into other kind of spiritual conversations and spaces and groups and
to share the word,
and not necessarily from a Christian point of view, but a holistic spiritual point of view.
No, it's so interesting because I'm going through more or less the same thing, but I've always been Christian. I've never been Buddhist or anything. I've always been
because that's what we know, right?
That's what we know.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've been this close with God.
There's something that happens in your 40s, right? And the more I dig and the more I find out is your 40s, everything falls apart. By the way.
Oh. Thanks for letting me know. I'm turning 40 in a month. Yep. So thanks.
Some of the things that you held as core will dissipate and will disappear. So we are meant to reinvent and evolve after every 7 years or so.
Is that why they say life starts at 40? Did you think so? Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Because the things that I held dear and that I held true and things that I was sure of in my life, career, relationships, all of that.
Perspective has changed totally.
Some crumbled. Some disappeared. Some just failed.
Including friends. Is it not interesting?
Yeah. So most of that will happen between the ages of 35, 45.
Yeah.
Because you are in need of evolving.
Yeah.
And your interests are going to change.
Yeah.
The conversations are going to change.
Yes.
So that's what I went through a lot of from about 38, 39, up until recently.
Yeah. This is
there's a lot of loss there's a lot of loss that happens between those ages. Loss, divorces, friendships disappear.
Yeah.
For me, it was mainly the relationships and my career. I didn't recognize myself in what I do anymore.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were all over the place?
Yes, I felt lost.
Yes.
Like I wasn't sure. I have been sure about my ish since I was 19. And here I am approaching my 40s and it feels like, Tshepo, what in the world are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, self-introspecting. No, charity meeting.
So the two biggest areas in my life that have kind of suffered and needed me to be present in them have been my career, my money, and my relationships.
Yeah. And those are most important to you right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have you always been a creative? Let's talk about your professional journey now on how it has evolved. Okay?
Yeah.
At 19, have you always been a creative?
Yeah.
Yeah. And where does that come from? Where's the creative in the family? Where did you see that? Because most of the time I feel like not necessarily, but not necessarily factual.
Yeah.
Is that I feel like you see a lot how you grow up and what you see, you end up becoming. Like, you know, when you grew up in a musical family, you end up becoming a musician or something related to that because that's all you saw, you know, or maybe God has, for me, I think maybe God has said, this one is a musical family and this is what you guys are going to do. But have you seen that anyway? Who was the creative in your family that you saw that doing?
So my mom was born in 1937. Okay, let me start there. And for some reason, she was, you know, she had kids and she had me at 43, right? You can imagine that space, spacing.
Did you? You had a huge gap between you and your siblings.
Yeah. I mean, from my sister is 16 years older than me, and my brother Ntatelang is 10 years. They're 10 years, 6 years older. 16 and 6.
Yes.
And they are 10 years apart. And then I have 2 older siblings. The other one is late. But I think the reason why I specifically speak of my mom's age is because somehow, somewhere down the line, she decided that I don't have much, but I'm still going to give my children the world, right? So encyclopedia ni bidu ankana ya bogologolo ene ba rekisa
mo library.
Mo library.
Encyclopedia.
Okay, but there's a Botanica.
That one. Yes,
Botanica. So she bought a whole set, and every time we asked a question, she would say, "Go to the shelf and open the part that you're looking for, right? And read about it. We had piano lessons on the weekends, none of which I attended. My brother actually became a lot more serious about it.
It wasn't you.
You know, but I'm a very musical person actually. And then, you know, later on went on to play at church. And then there's a part in my life where I lived with my aunt abroad, right? For a few years. Those were very much my formative years.
Where's abroad?
We lived in Ivory Coast, but had a stint in Canada. And then when they came back to, you know, the African office through their work, I then came back home. So it was quite a bit of time that I lived with them. So those little things contribute to the artistic that, you know, and, you know, obviously at that very, very young age, I went to an American foundation school in Ivory Coast, and they're all about, you know, creativity. I mean, I look at my pictures, there was a Christmas show that we did, a Christmas, and just that environment, I think. It just built that. But also my mom was kind of a person who loved music. And if you speak to my older siblings, she would have the recorder there, like turntable, it would have Mama Hotel. Even now, you know, how you know, don't you miss your Mahotela Queens days? Because the pictures would say it all, right? She would be in her platforms, her wig, and she would be going out with her girls to Mahotela Queens. And we grew up, especially my older siblings, grew up with music as a foundation to who they are. And as a result, my entire family is incredibly musical, incredibly musical. So when you ask who is responsible, I say Ntaking, because she's the one who really just...
Ntaking, is that your mom?
That's my mom's name. Yes. So she, and I don't think she knew in a very conscious about it. It's just something that she did. We woke up on a Saturday morning, there'd be the recorder playing over there. You know, she'd be singing along to a song of some kind. And note, there wasn't any, you know, wasn't a TV. Right? It was all organic. She'd be singing and doing, you know, so it's just an environment that we kind of grew up around. And she would encourage us to get into some kind of arts.
So she was arty.
She was arty. It's just that for somebody born in that era, they probably don't know or didn't know how to express it.
Yes, absolutely.
And then she'd get ready in the house, and I'd be throwing on my T-shirt, pretend it was hair, and take a brush, and you know, just sing. So when I started radio, she always said, you know, this now fits because you always used to pretend you were a singer and you'd sing, and here you are, you're working on radio.
Absolutely,
You know, so, but also the other foundational influences are you know, the people that I used to listen to on radio, Radio Botswana, you know, Radio Botswana, Monica Mpusu. How do I forget these guys? One is my peer, so no, not on.
Is she our age?
She's my peer. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So bo Mokhankara, bo Monica Mpusu, there's a lot of them. And then in South Africa, you would talk about, you know, the Radio Bob
yes,
guys,
Bob Mabenas and
the Bob Mabenas,
Tish Mataz,
Bertha Chiruma. There's one lady by the name of Bertha Chiruma and Tish Mataz, who actually then later in life became my mentor.
Amazing.
Yeah. So then those people then became, you know, very, very big influences in terms of what I would do and how I would do it. Yeah.
We're gonna take a break because we need to now get into your radio career and how you transitioned into it and where it started.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we'll be right back. Hi guys, welcome back. So we are continuing with our conversation with Tshepo Ntshole in studio. I'm really, really enjoying this conversation so much. I hope you're enjoying yourself.
I love it. I miss talking. So yeah, I miss talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Tshepo, I want us to touch on your radio journey, but before we touch on that, did you go to school for radio? Where did you go to school?
Nobody goes to school for radio.
Okay.
If anybody says they went to school specifically to talk behind the mic, that would be great. But radio is really about raw talent, right? And it's really about the talent of people, I think.
Yes.
So if you have a talent of speaking and a talent of people, then radio is definitely a place for you. So I didn't go to school, but I did study marketing with IMM.
Yeah.
And I didn't finish. I didn't go the whole way because I thought at the time, you know, when you start working,
while you're schooling,
it's like the money is nicer,
what
man.
am I doing?
You know. So I didn't finish that qualification. But also there's something in me that just said, I'm gonna actually do this. Let me just test it out. Let me see how far I can go without a qualification. Let me see what kind of rooms I can actually get into.
Yeah.
I'm stubborn like that.
Yes.
I'm the colors of the rainbow. I'm not one-dimensional. And when you say you can't do this, because during our time, you couldn't do anything without a qualification.
Yes.
You couldn't talk to certain people without a qualification.
No, that's Africa in general. Still is, by the way.
Yeah. And I understand the importance of it, but I think for me, I needed to prove to myself. And I've been in rooms with presidents, CEOs, you know, all kinds of levels, and I have commanded rooms.
This is through MC.
This is through my speaking work.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just that. You need a qualification to succeed in something. How far true is it? It's true, but not all the way.
Yeah.
And it's all about your mindset and all about what you tell yourself and what you tell yourself you can do. And now later in life, I've done it all, Lorato. Literally, I have done it all. I've succeeded and failed in business. More failures than what feels like successes to me. Even though, you know, I'll talk to people and say, you've actually charted a path. So that in itself is success.
Yes. For the generation.
For the generation behind me, exactly. So, but in my later years, I'm just like, you know what? Now I'm ready to go back to school. I understand and I know exactly what I want to. I want to enhance because I'm learning, yes, but I'm enhancing what I already have. But also I've got other things to share, and I feel like I want to learn a little bit more. I want to discover a little bit more. So let me go back to school, actually finish this time.
Yes. What are you doing?
I did a marketing qualification with UCT back in 2020. I'm now doing a management course I'm getting into a management course with the University of Essex. And then I'm getting, because my next level of career is now in coaching. So I will be getting into coaching. I will be getting a coaching qualification by the end of this year.
Coaching what exactly?
Mindset coaching. And image and mindset coaching. That is my next, direction.
Right, okay.
And I'm not leaving media behind at all. In fact, it's still a big part of what I do and what I will continue to be doing.
Yeah.
And, the idea is for me to get my master's next year. So you see, the more you for me anyway, it's okay, I'm ready. I have certain things to say. I've got certain things to do now that need me to to qualify.
Yeah.
And that's it. But if you are at a place where it feels like it's being drummed in you that, oh my God, you need a qualification. Yes, you do. But sometimes life can allow you, to take a different route.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I want us to, get into how you got into radio. Let's talk about your career now.
Sure.
Okay. Now, did you start off in radio? Where did you start working?
So, my first job after Form 5 was with a company called PSI, Population Services International.
I remember PSI.
Right. So those who don't know PSI, they did a lot of consultancy work in Botswana, but one of their biggest things was they were the owners and the manufacturers and the marketers of condoms, Lovers Plus.
Yes.
Now remember, my background before then in high school was that I was a member of PACT. I was a peer educator. So even then I used to talk with crowds. So I then got into that at the age of 17. I worked at PSI International. And one day that big boss came from Canada and there was a staff meeting and I just so happened to say something. And he said, wait. What's your name? I said, Tshepo. He said, okay. And then he looked at whoever was there and says, she's starting the radio show next week. Or on Saturday or something like that. And that's how I kind of started radio, because that's where I then started my radio show, or the Lovers Plus show with DJ Fresh. And
where?
RB2.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
DJ Fresh was still in RB. That's a long time ago.
That's 1996, 97.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Shakes the Mix as well. So I do Shakes the Mix on Monday and DJ Fresh, I think Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
That's how I officially got bitten by the radio bug.
And you enjoyed yourself.
I loved it. And then I left PSI and I didn't do anything for a while. And my mom, I think, got worried.
Yeah.
And she spoke to her friend who owned a gas station, a petrol station. And my job at the time was to pack drinks. And then I remember on day 2, second day, I said, no, this is not who I want to become.
Yeah.
This is not who I want to become.
Yes.
I went home and said to my mom, it's fine. Please say to Mr. Simaman, thank you. But I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Hey, we do Ghana, I said no. I was 17, 18 at the time, and I knew that would not be my path.
No, yeah.
And then she spoke to someone at GPH, private hospital. I started working in the accounts department.
It was new then.
It was very new. Mr. Chand, who was an incredible boss. Mr. Chand is the one who ended up then owning and running these testing, the labs. What are they called again?
Oh, the current labs right now that we have the famous one.
The green one.
I see it.
So I was working in the lab at the GPH and he was heading it.
Amazing.
Yes, so
this is how old that lab is?
That's how old that lab is. But that lab is because he then left. I think I left first and then he started, what is it called? Please remind me.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, but yes, we know it. Yes. The one, the
green
lab,
one, yes.
Green and red.
Green and red. So he started it, I think, about 5-6 years after.
Yeah.
So that's how I knew him.
He passed on. I remember COVID.
Yes, COVID. Shame. So that I was in the accounts department there. And how radio happened was there was a gentleman who used to work in the little office in that lab.
Yeah.
And he had walked out.
Yeah.
And the phone rang. And I just went in there. Diagnofirm, yes. And then I walked in there and I answered the phone. Hello, good morning. I need you to understand,
but now encourage this behavior.
Yes, with my children.
I'm the same, so I know.
So at 18, hello, good morning. And then this gentleman says, where's Mama? I said, he's not in. But okay, you'll let him know that this person called. I said, okay, cool. A week or 2 down the line, Monga Ofisi says to me, okay, so you are being asked to go to Radio Botswana for what? For auditions. Why? You remember that call that you answered in my office? Yeah. The person on the other side loved your voice so much.
Amazing.
That he thinks you're worth something because they're about to start something. I said, okay. Went to Radio Botswana that Saturday. Who was there?
Who was the person that you're talking to?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Sydney Baitile was there. Bonolo Dingalo was there.
DJ Sid.
DJ Sid. Sorry. DJ Sid.
That's how we remember him.
Yeah, Bonolo Dingalo. And the person who actually asked for me to come. His name was Pako. I think. Potlako Mawande. He was part of the team that was starting out Gabs FM. He was the foundational team member, and he just so happened to be this gentleman's friend.
Yes.
Potlako then went on to become the first marketing manager while Gabs FM when we started.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how my radio gig started.
So you started with Gabs FM?
Yeah. I started with Gabs FM, then they fired me a year and a half down the line because I was too young. I mean, I started at 19.
So why were you fired?
Because I was young. It was me, Tshepo Ntshole, Thabiso Nasha, and I don't remember who else.
I remember this.
And we were all young, apparently. I mean, at 19.
I mean, what you're saying is you're fired because you behaved young.
No.
Because you were young, period.
That's what they told us. We were young. And immediately, I remember when we got the letters, I went downstairs. There was a Konerjala thing on the other side of. If you remember where Gabs FM used to be along the old Lubatara. Yes. There were and we were sitting, and I remember, never forget this. I pick up the phone and call Dumi, because remember, after those auditions, I then saw in the newspapers that there was
another radio station.
There were auditions happening at Bipuso Hall. So if you think you're interested or you think you're the vibe, you can come.
For Yarn FM?
For Yarn FM, I went.
Yeah, that's where you went from there to there. You said you called me.
No. This is before I got hired at Gabs FM. So after the auditions at RB2, I then went on to go to the call-out auditions. I did my auditions and I walked out knowing that I have the job, or at least I will be called. Indeed, a week or two later, they called me. And then I went to room, is it 106 at Grand Palm?
Yes.
I believe that's
the one that Jimmy was telling us about, that room where they started.
Go Grand Palm. I then went for a second call of interviews at room 106. And
so it was room 106.
I believe so. I think so, if I'm not mistaken. It was room 106.
This is during the KC times.
Yes, very intentional. I love that. And I was interviewed by Dumi, Mike Proctor, I think it was at the time, and somebody else. I remember walking out that door and closing the door and smiling and thinking, I got this, right? So here are two radio stations that I'm just literally going with the flow. Before then, I would dream and think about, it would be really, really nice to work on radio because of those moments of amazingness with the Radio Bob presenters and whatnot. So
you used to dream of it?
Yeah. I mean, not dream. I didn't know I was dreaming about it, but I had a little portable radio, and my mom's yard is very big, and I would. Radio Bob, my girl. And that's where I would go and sit and listen. I would literally spend a whole morning or whole afternoon listening to radio.
Such similarities with your story and Owen.
Yeah.
In terms of
drawn to this thing, right? So that's when these things started happening. And my first call came at the same time. The two calls came at almost a day apart.
Gabs FM and Yarn FM?
Absolutely. They almost came at the same time. And because I'm this mature, grown in thought human being, I let Yarn FM go.
Is that when you went to
Gabs FM?
Only to get fired?
Only to get fired. I know it sounds bad, but I mean...
No, what would you have known at 19? No, actually, let me not even say that.
At 19, I knew.
No, meaning
that
how would you have known you would have gotten fired? That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you mean that?
Yeah,
no, I mean for me, I was choosing the more mature route because I've always hung out with people who are older than me.
Is that why you chose it?
Yes, that's why I chose Gabs FM. I've always conversed at a slightly higher level than my peers.
I can relate. Yes.
Do you understand what I mean? So Gabs FM made us. Also, if you went to the auditions, you would have looked around and thought, no, this is not my space. as a 19-year-old. But because I engaged at a slightly different, a higher level than my peers, I thought Gabs FM made so much more sense. I listened to old music. I was just I'm an old soul. Let me put it like that.
You were just aligned with them.
Yes. To fire me a year and a half later. Anyway, so once I got the letter, or once we were caravanning, and immediately, because I had engaged with Dumilo Pam before, I literally picked up the phone to call Yarn FM's boss to say, I'm sure you heard the news about okay. Sure. We had lunch a few days
ago. Did you hear the news?
Yeah, I mean, it was an open secret. I think it had already come out. I think somehow.
Yeah, but you just
and I'm just like yeah, and I said yeah, and he said okay, come, let's meet with Percy. I met with them a few days later. We had lunch somewhere. I don't know if it was inconspicuous at the time, but we had lunch, and I jumped over to Yarn FM not too long after that.
Is that how now we started hearing you on radio?
Well, I guess.
What year was this?
This was 2004.
2004.
Correct.
Yes, I was doing my first year.
Was it 2003 or 2004?
Somewhere there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Actually, no, 2002. I think I started with Yarnet 2002.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, then how'd that go?
It was beautiful. Yeah. It was incredible.
Funny enough, I think...
It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, I think that's when we started knowing you.
Really?
From Yarn FM.
I think so. Maybe
because we genuinely thought you started working at Yarn FM and then you moved to Gabs FM.
No, I started with Gabs FM.
Yeah. And you were on air with Gabs FM?
Yeah. I was mid-morning. With Gabs FM from 9 to 12. And then after that, I then asked Letty, Solo and Letty, I produced for that show.
Yeah. So yes, Solo. Solo B?
Solo B. So I produced for the morning show so I'm the type of person who can't sit with my hands.
Yes,
I have to always do something. So when I realized that I only work for 4 hours and the rest of the day is mine, I then asked the morning team, guys, can I put your show together? Can I help put your show together? Can I produce your show for you?
You're inquisitive.
And that was the biggest breakfast morning show in the land.
Yes, it was. I remember this.
It was the biggest morning show.
Tell me about because I'm just trying to. How long were you at Gabs FM?
I was at Gabs FM for 1.5 years to 2 years, from 1999 to 2001, 2002.
Yeah. Okay. So you did start at Gabs FM.
Yeah.
So,
correct.
All right. So tell me about your journey at Yarn FM. Yeah.
It was.
I think maybe we were listening to Yarn FM. That's why we thought you started it.
Yeah. No, I didn't start at Yarn FM. Yarn FM was incredible. It was an incredibly fun place.
Yeah.
Right. But because you have so many young people, there was a sense also that there was a bit of toxicity. And that for me was not working. In fact, I don't think most of the people who I would talk to about that from there would know exactly why I left.
Yeah. How long were you there?
I was there from 2000. I know I left in 2004, 2005. So about 3-4 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. Actually.
Yeah. So there was a sense, and nobody made anyone accountable to a certain level. You know what I mean? But otherwise, the atmosphere was young. It was vibey. It was anything is possible. It was we rule the world. Red hot building. We were everything and anything, and you couldn't tell us anything, right?
This was during the time of Bolu's Boy.
Absolutely. Yes, so you can imagine that kind of
vibes,
energy. You know, it was just amazing in that regard. But I think because I feel. Right, I feel a lot more.
You can feel the energy.
I feel. So I felt, and it started growing exponentially. So one day, and in fact, this was a week after Dumi gave me a raise. I called him and said, "I'm out." Tshepo, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
We just had this conversation. In fact, I gave you the letter. I said, yeah, no. But also there was a plan to just go to Australia to my cousin for a little bit.
No,
at the time.
that was a backup plan.
But it didn't happen, actually. What then happened was my dream came true of producing the 2005 Miss Botswana. One of the biggest, from a marketing point of view, that was one of the biggest marketing exercises for Miss Botswana ever.
Yes.
And then Bo Fish then took over and then, gave it a little bit. Yeah. So that's what then happened, because I had expressed to a random friend a year or two before that, I loved putting, since high school, I used to put our packed events together.
Yeah.
The school budget.
Event management.
Yeah, that's it. So it's ingrained in me. So I was the one who was tasked at school, given a little budget, our club de t-shirt thing. So I was that girl at school.
Proactive.
Yes,
a proactive child. Yeah.
So I loved putting events together, and not just any event. For me, production is art, right? And if you've come to the events that I've really put together, they are art.
Yeah.
So I dreamed of Miss Botswana just being this from a production point of view.
Yeah.
And he listened. He was hearing me, and of course God was hearing me as well. And initially it was taken over by Lima Isaacs, and then somehow it got dropped, and this guy just went and got the license to produce the event for 2005, and he just called me and said, I don't know how to do an event.
Yeah.
We had a conversation a year ago, and I found the opportunity, so here you are.
Yeah.
Because I never forget when Lima was BTV News, and she was announcing that she's going to do Miss Botswana. I cried.
Why were you crying?
Because I wanted that opportunity so much.
Yeah.
It didn't make money, but that from a production point of view,
so
I mean, the girls were
amazing,
coming from the sky, were walking from a production and visual production point of view. That still stands as one of my proudest and biggest productions.
Who was Miss Botswana then?
And then it was Lerato, now who mentors the other Miss Botswanas. I forget her name. She's a PR she works in PR now.
Sorry, I don't follow Miss Botswana that well,
fine.
so I don't.
Yeah, I know. So Lerato,
Okay.
She then became
and then the Miss Botswana production.
Then the Miss Botswana production, and then I decided to open my own events management company. This was between 2005 and 2006. So producing Miss Botswana forced me to open Sixpence Management.
Oh, Sixpence.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's how Sixpence Management was born. That became one of the most amazing few years and years of my life, because we brought about incredible productions. Can you give me incredible events?
Which other ones did you do?
I had to, with my own money, go to Cape Town, walk into O Magazine's editor's office and say, I know you don't do events outside South Africa, but I would like you to come to Botswana and do the OMAG Tea Party, which was a really big thing at the time in South Africa. And Michelle looked at me. I was doing it with Mother, actually, at the time. I said to Mother, I want to do this.
Who's Michelle?
The editor at the time, or marketing manager at the time. I don't know. And she said, okay, we'll give you guys a shot. You say you've done, for them, doing a beauty pageant and producing a beauty pageant is a huge thing.
No, it is a huge deal. So I can imagine.
So I did that. One of my other biggest, so after that, I got the luck, or I have the luck of having clients outside Botswana. And I got the call. That was your grace. Yeah, and I got the call one day, you Tshepo, yes, we want you to run part of the event management for the FIFA World Cup tour coming to Botswana. Yeah. So that was one also that I always 2009.
No, I mean the 2010 World Cup.
Correct.
Amazing.
Correct.
Tell me how that went.
It was one of the toughest, because obviously the cup is run by, military precision. I mean, we had to shut down a whole floor at the Grand Palm, just because of the security. So
of the World Cup itself, when it was passing through.
Yes. So I had to involve your G4Ss. I had to involve the local, So it was at that level. It was at that level.
But you did it.
I did it, and obviously with a few others. I mean, Show Group was also called specifically for that
Show Group.
for that show. And we worked closely with the Coca-Cola office in Botswana. So that was one of my very big.
Amazing.
So yeah.
Tell me about the Oprah thing. Did you guys end up doing it?
Yeah, we did it at Grandpa. Yeah. And that was the birth of. There was a season where tea parties were everywhere.
Yeah.
That event, and I say it very confidently.
Yes.
That event gave birth to
the
tea parties that you saw after, because a few people at the event then thought, wow, this would be nice to do on a regular basis. Yeah. And they took from there. Yeah, so it did happen. Yeah.
Okay, Sixpence then did all these events, and then after when Sixpence, because one thing I've realized is that you also had a YouTube video or YouTube channel.
So
side notes with Tshepo.
Side notes. That's just a little.
Was it part of Sixpence idea?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was. I did the production under Sixpence. So then, in 2006, what happened was I had left Yarn FM somewhere in 2005. I got a call from Heavy D, who was the manager for Gabs FM at the time, and he said, I want you back.
That's how you went back. Okay.
I want you back at Gabs FM. I said, are you serious? He said, yes. I said, I would be happy to. Because also I had run into a few failures.
Yeah, within Sixpence.
Yeah, I had run into
because business is being business.
Major failures, and I said, okay, this is the grace I've been waiting for. So I definitely, so 2006, I went back and had the most amazing time of my life. But then Sixpence was still alive.
Yeah.
So I decided to then continue.
Yeah.
And then while I was at Gabs FM, but that slow moment, Sixpence. I then had a conversation with Kabelo Binz, had come into the studio for an interview, and I said, look, after radio, I don't know, and I am an events person. I do events, so let's have a conversation. He said, okay, come and talk to me tomorrow. And that's how I started the Hot Wire events department.
Yeah, is that you who started
it?
Yes. Amazing.
So
Hot Wire, my people.
Hot Wire, good people.
Those
good
are
people.
me. They're my people.
So that's how I started with Hot Wire, and I was with them for about 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my journey, and then somewhere along the line, after 2010, I then started getting this voice. I was unhappy in what I did. I left Hot Wire in 2009, I believe. And it was just, I think the growth, that spiritual thing, the transition, that evolving that needs to happen started.
Yeah, what age was this? Do you remember?
I was 13.
Yeah.
So it was, okay, is this it? Is this all you're going to be? Is this all you're going to do? Being the known as the girl wa radio. So there was an identity thing. And mind you, between the time I left Yarn FM and just before I went into Gabs FM, there was an identity crisis. Because since the age of 19, I'm 26 now, I was always known as Tshepo Radio. So I didn't have anything to identify myself with at all.
Yeah.
And that kind of crushed me a little bit. So part of the reason in me going back to radio was, let me go back to the familiar.
While I'm figuring myself
out. But also that was my entire identity at the time.
Yeah.
So 2011, that kind of came back. But it was a sense of, is this it? Is this all you're going to be, girl? And I think the eventing thing, because I did it as a side gig, as my Gen Z would call it,
my Gen Z?
I didn't think that it was anything important.
Yeah.
That I'm only now mentioning these things because the gravitas of the projects that I did were incredible. I mean, I have done...
no, that is incredible.
Yeah, I've done... Only in the past few years am I waking up to that. But it was just aside from my main.
Yeah, imagine side immediately so incredible.
One full
time. Yeah.
That's it. So I then... MultiChoice happened to take us to Mauritius. Because it was, what's next? What's next?
Taking who? Who's us?
What? Media. Botswana media. Yeah. What's next? What's next? And we went to Mauritius, and an explosion of TV production just blew in my face. Like, wow, okay.
Because you're such a production person.
This is it, actually. But before then, while I was on radio, I have been in front of the TV. I've been a presenter.
Where?
On BTV. I was doing this alcohol show that spoke about the dangers of alcohol and whatnot.
Okay, yeah.
I have presented on TV before. I have been guest presenter on Bomokarachana. So it's a field I have been familiar with, just at a distance. So when we did this and when we went to Mauritius, I was just like, yes, this is my next.
Yeah.
This is my next.
And then what happened after?
Then I left radio in 2016.
Now, I remember when you left radio. I was listening to you that day.
Really?
Yeah, I was listening to you that day, and I remember your voice.
Right.
I remember it shaking.
And me crying, because that video is still up on Facebook.
And you keep saying, I am going to try something new, and let's see what happens. You kept saying that. I'm going to try this and see what happens. 100%. And the reason why I also brought you today is, ever since that day, what happened? Because you went, let's see what happens. So let's see what happens. I flew. Yeah.
I flew. I
remember even the voice. I could feel the anxiety, but you were doing it.
Yeah. And I cried so much that day. I flew. I crashed.
Yeah.
I got up.
Yeah.
Crashed. I've had some incredible wins. I've had some incredible losses.
Yeah.
Ever since that day, I have grown so much.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it.
Was that the whole group companies when you started?
That was still Sixpence. The whole group actually started 3-4 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. That was still 6. So what happened after radio? Tell me after radio. What happened?
So after radio, this was 2016. Mind you, I'm leaving radio. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I just built a new house with a mortgage. I don't know how that one's going to... I'm not pregnant. My daughter's 2 years old. What am I doing?
But you
right?
did. Yeah.
So this was in 2016. I left radio. But I had conversations with my husband. And we weren't married then. And I said, yeah, I want to do this. In fact, again, the person that I am, the feeling... it wasn't an environment where I was thriving. In fact, the thought of going to work made me sick, and I only came alive within that box in the studio. And then when I walked out again to go home, I'd have a headache. So that's when I knew that it wasn't okay for me. But I just didn't want to leave without knowing.
This is very spiritual. You had to, the inner knowing.
The inner knowing, right? That we hardly ever listen to until something crashes.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. God.
Okay. He's always talking, yeah?
And then...
Yeah.
And then... until the table crashes. That is a real thing.
Yes. Then the door just...
breaks down.
You just...
Yeah.
So
I wasn't realizing that what it was. I was just listening and paying attention and paying attention to my body at the time. And I left. And I started the production company, and it was amazing again. The teachings, they always say when you start something new, the universe backs you up 100%. And there's the beginner's luck that you have to be aware of, because you have to build on that beginner's luck.
Yes.
Otherwise, you just think you're the itch, right?
It goes to your head.
It goes to
and
then it goes to your head, and then it crashes again, which is exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
So we got clients, we got all these people from a production point of view, and that's how actually Marang came into the Unplugged.
When
you asked me about Marang, and that's how we had 3 successful seasons with Now TV.
Yeah, nice.
But Marang did only the first season, and you know, impeccable person to work with. She's a consummate professional.
She's also very, very, I think also her spirit. She's got a beautiful spirit.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so
spirit,
so that was my journey after radio. So I opened up a production company with two gentlemen, and you know, we just thrived. And at the same time that year, I was very clear about the fact that now I'm into storytelling.
Yes.
And I went to a storytelling seminar in New York and learned even more, a great deal, and doors opened for me. The world opened up for me.
Yes.
Really.
But basically, you got exposed to this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I came back even more determined. But that's a crash and burn story.
Yeah.
And then that's when the whole group of companies happened.
Tell me about the crash and burn story.
The crash and burn story is really partnering with people who are not aligned to your kind of thinking. Because I then called these people and said, let's create this, right?
Coming from a good place. Coming from a good place.
Yeah. And these are the lessons in business I've had to learn over and over, business and money. That, you know how the lesson, until it's learned, it's going to repeat itself? That these are the lessons I've had to learn over and
keep
over.
Giving people, the same people chances.
Oh my God.
The same people.
Anyway.
So what were the lessons?
The lessons is that I really didn't trust myself enough.
To do it alone.
To do it alone and then seek help where I know I can't seek.
Yes.
You know, I understand my strengths and then call on the people that have
those strengths. Yes.
The strengths that I call weaknesses, right? Yes. Believing in myself has been a big revelation. Trusting myself, right? And just needing to have somebody validate you. That's not necessary. In business.
Yeah. No, you can't. In
understand
business, you can't have that.
You know? And it's happened 3 times how can do 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
You know.
No, but it happens to all of us.
My girl.
Yeah.
Anyway, so crash and burn. After my first crash and burn after formal employment. But then I had amazing technical partners. We went on. I left that.
Unplugged. This is Unplugged.
Yeah. I left that the media business and then focused on Unplugged, and you know, an incredible team from a production point. You know, incredible.
It was a great production, actually.
And that's what worked, right? We were individual businesses coming together.
And you were aligned.
And we were aligned. Not Lerato, let me partner with you. So it's
better.
It was individual companies that came together, drew up a vision and executed it for 3-4 seasons. That's it. It's absolutely.
And it worked because these businesses, there are people who want to see a success of their businesses.
Yes, you know. So Unplugged happened until COVID happened. And then as COVID happened, somebody else called me in and said, look, I have this idea, but I don't want to really push it. So can you take it, right? I took it full on, another crash and burn story. But that was, and with that one, I thought, finally, you know, God has answered. I'm now doing, my business is now going to grow. I'm, you know.
Which one is this one?
This was, not a lot of people actually know about it. I had partnered with BTV. I don't want to speak a lot on it.
It's okay.
But we had partnered with BTV, and it was a business relationship with BTV. But it was, this person had actually called me to come in and just take it over as my business.
Yes.
That was probably the biggest crash and burn for me.
Why?
Because how could you not learn from your past mistakes, but also you trusted a few people just way too much.
Yeah, again.
But this was worse because I thought I knew these individuals, right?
Especially when you think you know them.
Especially when you think you know them. That was the biggest and hardest business crash and burn that left me crippled emotionally.
Yeah.
So I had to work through that pain between 2020, end of 2021, up until currently.
No.
And I'm still working through it.
Really? That is amazing. You know, Tshepo, you've been sharing the lessons. What I'm getting from this conversation is, guys, get somebody with same aligned values. Values. I got that from Dumi. You know, Dumi is an astute businessman. You know, and when I interviewed Dumi, he kept saying, the best thing for you to do when you're running a business, make sure your values are aligned.
100%.
Values, not only business values, also family values. If you are, he even gave an example. If you are partnering with somebody that is married, but this person is also cheating on their wives, they're gonna also influence you. Not only that, brown envelope kind of thinking, you know, and all that. So I guess those are the lessons that we learn in the value system.
I mean, look, the value system is incredible, and for me, even though I'm still recovering, I've recovered really, but those lessons were the hardest. Those lessons were the hardest because it was too close to home.
I guess you don't want to go into too much into it, but I hear
I cared. But then from that, you know, the Perfect Serve magazine was born. The food and lifestyle magazine, which is going great. Although there was that has been my biggest teacher. That has been my biggest lecturer.
So after that, that's when the Perfect Serve magazine was together with the girlfriend series?
Together with that's where all these things then just started coming. And they've been my saving grace because I've had to really focus on them, but it hasn't been easy. And I went into the food and lifestyle publishing really, thinking that my mindset was really wrong. It was incredibly wrong. I was spiteful. I was very angry.
When you got into this? When you opened this because of what happened?
I was angry. I was fearful. I was mistrusting. I was trying to prove a point to someone.
You still don't want to go into the detail of what happened?
No, I don't.
Okay,
I was trying to prove a point to someone. There was a lot of
negative emotion that was going into
it. And I thought, you know, pouring myself into these things would work out. The Perfect Serve has worked out, but it has said to me, no, I'm your greatest asset. You are not going to work with me with that kind of mindset. It has literally said that because it hasn't failed. It has just, in 2022, it just stopped working.
And you knew why.
And I knew why. It didn't fail because failing is when you really can't move forward. It allowed me to move forward, but it just wasn't working. In 2022.
And why magazine?
Sorry, 2023.
Why magazine?
I love publishing. I love writing. I'm actually a writer.
You know, you're extremely talented.
Thank you.
Like, have you just been listening to yourself and how many things
I haven't. I write.
Extremely talented. We have come from production, radio, you know, producing a show, producing Miss Botswana, event management, you know. Now we're doing magazines.
Now we're doing
and magazines. Also media, you know, good. You just.
That's what I know. I know for sure.
You also did emceeing one time, the hosting shows.
I still do.
One thing I'm picking up from your story, Tshepo, is this all I'm gonna be doing? No, I'm gonna do more. You kept doing that. I'm gonna do more.
Because you're not one thing.
You're extremely multi-talented.
Thank you.
Perfect Serve magazine. There was a pause. It just said, no, we're not moving
forward. We're not moving forward, and I have to thank my website company because I begged her. I said, girl, everything. We printed 2 copies, 2 issues, and it just wasn't moving. And I remember calling at the beginning of 2023 and saying, I'm dropping everything. I'm closing the office. I'm letting some of my staff go. But I cannot let the website go. You're gonna need to work with me on this one. And she laughed. And she laughed and she said, okay, let's figure a way forward.
Who is that?
By the lady who does my website. The website company the whatever
the hosting.
The hosting. And she said, okay, let's see what happens.
This is 2023.
This is the beginning of 2023. And you know, I just had a meeting with her last week. We're revamping the site. We're gonna relaunch it as a new site. And now we're, you know, I've gotten a new writer for the site, and That's why I'm saying it just said to me, no. I want
we're gonna do it well.
This is the project. This is the project you're going to succeed at.
Yeah.
But you're not going to walk into it with that mindset.
So how did you fix the mindset?
12 o'clock midnight, December 31st, 2022, going into 2023, I cried heavily. And I said, God, no more.
What are we doing? Yeah.
No, I just said, I am no longer walking forward. Actually, I said, I'm refusing. I refuse to continue my life as if I don't know who the hell I am. Remind me. Hover over me and remind me who I am. 31st December, 0001.
This is 2022, 2023. Yes. Okay.
Hover over me and continuously remind me of who I am. Pour yourself over me from this day forward and walk ahead of me. Because I'm no longer walking ahead. I'm walking because the decisions I made in all of 2022 were based off of fear and were based off of...
To prove a point, like you were saying.
Yeah, like I was saying. So my prayer was just that.
Yeah, and then how did God answer?
He did. What I believed was a mountain at that time of a lot of things, debt and all these other things.
Yes, of course, in business, that's what you end up
with.
Yes,
and I look back.
Especially in this country.
Yes.
That's what to say, but
what looked like great pains and mountain, and now it's a hump. That I pray continuously.
Aligning.
If I see and I appreciate that it's no longer, but because also something happens when you become aligned and your partner isn't there yet, right? You then, because we made a very bad business decision last year.
Yeah.
You then appease to some extent, right? But I feel like he needed to walk that. I'm suffering, and we are kind of suffering for that decision, but he needed to walk that path to understand and to wake up to certain things. And I think he appreciates it a little bit more now that we have these conversations on a leveled play field.
Yes.
Because there's one thing for me to be awake to certain things, and for him to still feel like anything is possible.
Yeah.
All of these things. And then you end up making really messed up decisions as a unit, So last year was really about making a few more mistakes together this time, but rising together.
Where you're like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what you're saying, he also needed that.
He needed that. Everybody needs to fail, guys.
Yeah.
Everybody needs. And right?
Yeah.
Because once you are there, there's nowhere else you're gonna go.
Yeah.
It's only to rise.
Yeah.
And so because of my experiences, I'm realizing media is my love, is my baby. But now I need to get into spaces where I speak to people about mindset.
Yes, this is the coaching.
This is the coaching aspect.
Yeah.
And the one thing I've always loved was looking good, and people have always commented about the way I dress, how I put things together. And I look at especially my working ladies and mothers, there's something that happens after you have a child. You don't quite understand how to put it all
what am I doing now?
You're just like, but something happens after you have a child. And there's a lot that actually goes into it. Just that conversation.
Yes,
But I really want to speak to those women to say to them, this is how you can do it. This is how you can put it together. But also the mindset is a big thing.
Yeah. Tell me about the Girlfriend series.
The Girlfriend series was my little pet project that I was bored. I was missing radio. And one day I had been thinking about it. I had been testing it a little bit. And I just decided to do it.
Yeah.
I just went ahead.
How's it going?
It's going. The consistency has been a little of a problem because when I get busy, that's the one.
Distracts that.
That's the first thing to suffer because it's a pet project.
Yeah.
But one of the things I've really decided to do for this year, in asking God to align me, is for me to be very intentional about the Girlfriend series, because it then gives birth to a lot of other things that I plan to do and that I want to do.
I remember you did a Girlfriend series. I mean, the one that you hosted with me.
Yeah.
When I was there, amazing, by the way.
Yeah, thank
because
you.
You bring women together, and they don't even pay to come.
No. Oh, you mean the event?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I call it the Girlfriend series.
Yeah. So it's the Girlfriend series is a series of platforms.
Oh, it's not necessarily podcast.
No. So it's a series of platforms where we hang out and we chat as women, as girlfriends.
Yeah. That's
you know? So it can be the podcast, it can be the event, it can be all these other things that I plan to make happen.
Because even the one in Ravani, amazing, by the way. I think we had the Miss Matebelo Seretse as well. Yeah, amazing. Tshepo, we're about to wrap it up, but I want to ask you this about the creative industry in Botswana.
Sure.
What is your view of it, and what can we do better as a country to make sure that creators, because when I'm hearing your story, I feel like we have let you down. You are so talented and you're a powerhouse.
Thank you.
You should be at Basetsana Kumalo level now.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if you get what I mean. I've seen completely. The work that you have done.
Thank you
and
so
the quality you do. I'm not here trying to doll you up.
Blow smoke up my ass.
No, I've seen you. We've been watching you, and I'm pretty sure even on Instagram they are telling you.
I appreciate that so much.
We have seen that, and we've seen the talent that you have. I mean, the productions you've done.
Right.
Besides the money management aspect that you've mentioned now, how do you think we could have supported you as a country to make sure that you're where you need to be?
You know how as an individual you tell yourself that, or you wake up to the fact that I'm exactly where I need to be in life?
Yeah.
I think our industry, where we were exactly where we needed to be.
At the time,
to suffer how we suffered.
Yeah.
So that we have conversations that allow us to make things better for the next generation.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's just moving at a very slow pace. And it takes will. And you kind of feel that with this government, there's a bit of will.
For creatives.
For the creatives, but the actualization of it becomes the problem. I sat as the deputy chair for Botswana Film Association. And I still kind of, work with them a few times and engage with them and have those high level conversations. But I feel like it's the spirit of us wanting to win, right? I think part of the problem when I came into the industry was we were waiting for government to give us work.
That's like we as a country, we need to.
We were waiting. The industry was waiting for the commissioning. The industry was waiting for the tender. The industry, and I remember having this conversation. I said, guys, especially to my immediate technical partners, that you are not going to survive like that. You are not going to survive a tender that comes out every 2 years. Yes, let them fix what they need to fix, but
what are we doing in the meantime?
What are you doing in the meantime to feed your kids? So then you then also the uptake of companies, the private sector, right? So now you see a lot of vibrancy. There's a lot of production.
I see it.
Around the corporate
space,
storytelling space and all of those things. So government will always be government, right? But mind you, no government has ever changed because of somebody sitting at government.
Absolutely.
Government and the way it does things has always changed because of how the people
force the government to change.
100%. And that is us doing, and that is us lobbying. The lobbying can be stressful, it can be slow, it can take years.
But we don't give up.
but we don't give up. I mean, we're talking about the when I joined Bofia, there was the conversation around the Cinematography Act and the ways of working around, you know, how we pay our people, how footage is taken and used, and into and all these things. This was a few years ago. This conversation is still there. Now it's at cabinet level, thank God, and we are yet to hear it being, law, proper law. But what I'm saying is that sometimes lobbying, when you're sitting in that seat, understand that is going to take a long time. But at least there's action. There's something happening. So there's a lot of things. There are a lot of things that we as an industry can do from a creative point. How you could have helped me? I was meant to be in those spaces at that time. I was meant to see the inadequacies so that I call my fellow peers and say,
let's fix this.
Let's try and fix this in our own particular
But what you're
way.
saying is, it's actually then the creators that are causing the issues.
No, we're not necessarily. We're not causing the issues. It's just that we're waiting for somebody to do something
for us.
And yet we are the ones who need to be acting and standing up, as frustrating as that may be.
But you can't just sit.
You can't just sit.
Absolutely.
Because you need to eat, right?
What are your plans for 2024?
My plans for 2024 is really to keep on realigning, coming back. If I feel like I'm veering off, I should come back. My biggest thing around my life right now is my career. And just I'm entering into a new space in terms of my career. I'm redefining who Tshepo Ntshole
is this the degree and the
everything,
studying?
Everything. So, and that entails studying, for being focused, and really now allow me to reintroduce myself, and also just allowing, because I for me to get to certain spaces or to certain levels, I need to become a completely new person. That's what change needs. That's what change demands. Change demands for you to become new. Change, because you cannot change and evolve if you still do the things that. The Tshepo that got you here is not the Tshepo that's going to get you there.
So what you're saying, what got you here will not get you there.
That's it.
Yeah. There's a book on that, by the way.
Oh, is it?
I recommend it to you.
I don't know. Yeah.
There's a book on that. I actually have it in my library, but I'll take a picture.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something that we have to come to terms with. And that's why you shed. The moment the evolving happens and you are agreeable to that evolution, people fall off.
Yeah.
Things fall off. Situations.
And it's okay.
And
it's part of the evolving
beautiful
thing. Tshepo, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you
so much for coming today. We are a personal finance show, right?
Yes, you are.
What were the financial lessons that you've learned that other creatives should learn?
Don't be afraid of money. Money from a money point of view, these have been my lessons. That this paper, that's actually not the important thing. The important thing is your conversation with yourself about money and your conversation with other people about money. I've learned that money is your personal response to it. The conversations that you have with money are actually the most important point of departure before you handle the money. And also the one thing that I've also learned is that how we currently deal with money is a result of our past traumas and what has been ingrained in us around money. And I have so many examples in terms of how my mother used to react every time and what she used to verbalize as a result of that growing up. Things like, hey, or tota or and not necessarily just my mom, but other people around me. Those are, before you get to money, these are now things that you start telling yourself. And what do? When money comes into your account, that subconscious remembering tells you, I'm currently having conversations with one or two people around the basic element of saving, right? And my conversations don't start with money. They start with how you feel and what you say to yourself about money. And and your thought process around money. So my process, and I'm not a you. You have the squares and the circles and all of that. I'm not that. And I don't even pretend to be. But I know that there's one side of the money conversation that is how I healed was me facing up to the conversations that I had heard and that I was having. And then maybe after that, I can then come to a Lerato Akpata and say, okay, I've kind of dealt with my financial, emotional traumas. Now help me to direct my money to where it can grow. I think that is the lesson for me. That is the point A, going to the point B, going to the point C. Because one thing I've noticed, I was talking to a 55-year-old woman who does not have her own home, who does not have a savings account, and has never had a savings account, and earns well below 3,000 pula. But now the lesson for me that I've learned is that I can still earn 3,000 pula. But higher December, beginala madia kerakela mbana madia diaparo tsa Christmas, a little bit more grocery, diaparo tsa January. I understand that fully, even with that amount, because the moment you hear that Lerato earns 3.2, what's and then something's going to happen in your life where you are actually not going to earn a single cent. And then you're going to, why below 3.2 because we start off, imagine yourself at your first ever job. From either university, your first ever job. You have no child, you have no responsibility, you have no dog, you have nothing. Why are you not a millionaire? Ask yourself that question. Why do you not have $1 million saved in your account? By now. Yeah. Ask yourself that question, because we get into the workspace, the salary space, the receiving of money space with stories already in our head.
So we need to deal with that.
We need to deal with that, and I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's very okay. I think it's only in the last few. I remember after reading this, I forget what the book is called. After reading this book and realizing where my money trauma was, I literally got up the next day, called my nephew, who's an accountant, and said, "Kutlo, come and fix my books." Yeah. I was in debt at the time.
Yeah, you needed that awareness.
Yeah, and I was in personal debt. I feel like business debt is much more better than personal debt, because business debt you can point a finger to whatever, but personal debt is all you. Nobody else to blame. And I said to my nephew, please, and I cleared out that debt. There was a point I had no sekoloto. The only debt I had, Lerato, was my mortgage. I'd actually finished my car payments. Yeah. There was a time in my life where I drove a car that I did not kolota. Yeah. At all. But there were still certain conversations about savings that I wasn't clear on. I wasn't, and these are things that now I'm coming to light about. So for me, financial awakening is the chats. Yeah. Before you handle that money, because the money, and when you think about the money can be a cup, we know that money used to be shells at some point. Money used to be gold at some point. It used to be beads at some point. Money is what we give it value. The beads dile 100 million, so says somebody. Yeah. But what is the conversation? What is the with yourself and with other people? And this thing of being afraid to talk about money.
Yeah,
that's another one. So for me, it's really not about, yes, a lot of people are into financial debt and they're financially burdened and also learning to live. Yeah. That's my thing. Yeah. You know what? There are times I can call that 1,000 and people like 50 pool. If she decides to react to that, that's her problem. Yeah. Especially if I've communicated with Lerato. One of the biggest things I'm realizing is that we don't know how to manage our debt. If I owe Lerato, I'm going to hide instead of talking to Lerato.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Do you understand what I mean? Yeah. So learn you are in a 50,000 pula debt. That's fine. That's okay.
For you to know where you are.
Know where you are. Go to Lerato and say, Lerato, this is where I am. This is how I can better manage. Ne ke duela bokana, but I ke kopa go duela bokana. Lerato a gane kana dumela. Most likely, legally, Lerato is actually obliged to say yes. That's another thing that people don't realize, right? And then walk that road until that 50,000 pula is done.
No.
I can your salary is no longer 20,000. It's now 10,000. Already, Lerato Morago o tla mo duela 50 pula towards her. Already, nananya no rota mo duela bokana. O wait 100 pula gore bogolo hela.
No, that's how
live. No, so those are my lessons. And again, personal debt is so much far worse than business debt. But you grow into
in your experience.
In my experience, because you genuinely feel like a failure from with personal debt. You feel like you have failed yourself at so many levels. That's why I said to my niece that my nephew those many years ago, I'm a grown woman. I cannot live like that. And then from then on, I really, really thrived, But now I'm thriving in my personal finances, and I know how to deal with my personal finances. It's the business debt that has become quite challenging.
Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I did. Tshepo, thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
What an amazing conversation. I hope you've learned from it as much as I did. And bye for now, guys.